Good evening, everyone, and welcome to yet another session of Dai Aakar Goa. Today, we are gathered here to learn about outdoor learning with Talula De Silva. Before I start this session, let me take this opportunity to speak about Dai Aakar Goa. Dai Aakar Goa is a 3-year-old group started by like-minded individuals who wanted to spread the message of love through art, culture, literature, and ecology. In these 3 years, we have conducted various sessions on short story reading and play reading, where we have featured eminent writers like Saadat Hasan Manto, Girish Karnad, to name a few. Now, during the pandemic, we conduct our sessions online, and we also conduct a monthly session with an expert who is passionate about a topic. So, today we have with us here Talula De Silva, who will be speaking about outdoor learning. In these few months, when we were locked up in our homes during the worst phase of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have realized the importance of being outdoor or being with nature, as it is very much part of our healthy living, be it physically, mentally, or emotionally. So is true for our children. I believe their mental and physical growth is better when they spend time outdoors with nature. So how does this help being outdoors and learning from nature? To throw more light on this topic, we have with us here Talula De Silva. Talula De Silva is an architect by profession who specializes in sustainability and mud building. She loves nature and working with children. For more than a decade now, she has been conducting outdoor learning where students, children, youth, and mixed groups are taken outdoors to learn about nature, history, environment, and taking action by engaging community initiatives. During the pandemic, she co-founded the Backyard Class and the Community Classroom to engage neighborhood children in learning beyond the virtual platform of online classes. So, let's welcome Talula and invite her to conduct this interesting session. Talula, over to you.
I'm happy to be here to share with you, some of the things that I've been doing over the last more than a decade, like Aarti. How should I begin? So since the topic is focused on purely outdoor learning, I will try to limit it to that. There is lots to talk about from the experiences I have had, from the things that I have learned. But I'll try to, limit myself only to this because there are a lot of people who are also keen to know, these new methods or methods that are being revived to enhance learning, whether it is with children, whether it is with adults, whether it is with senior citizens. I've worked with a whole gamut of a variety of participants. I've even worked with blind children. I've worked with people with different abilities. I've worked with senior citizens. And one thing I can say is the moment we step outdoors, it just makes all the barriers of learning, of sharing disappear. I'm just going to share my screen with some of the images I've compiled to share with you. I just need a prompt that, it is visible. Aarti, can you see?
Yes, I can see here. Yeah.
Yeah. Just a minute. Yeah. The first slide is with two kids. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So I always think about, what was a classroom to me, or what were my outdoor spaces where I felt I learned through Mother Nature. And when I say Mother Nature, I'm not limiting it to just things in nature, but also mentors. I've had lots of mentors who have influenced me because of their connection to nature. One of my biggest influences, of course, was my father. And I'm from my ancestral village is basically Mashe, which is in Kankon. And the place where our house was, the ancestral house was basically very close to the Tar. You know, Tar is basically the river edge. There is a canoe which takes you to the other side. And all my memories of rivers is basically that, a boat waiting for me and the boatman very eager to take us to the other side. So what was this river? The river was the very famous Galgibaga river. And just across was the Galgibaga beach. So my routine with my father was simply spending lots of time when we would go to when I would go with my father to my grandparents' place, sitting at the Tar, waiting for the canoe, and my father would just jump into the river and dive and swim across. I, of course, did no swimming at that time, and I was very intimidated by the water. So I would just get into the canoe and, go in the boat across to the other side, where my father and his dogs would be waiting for me. And then, of course, the beach was just around the bend in the river. So we would just walk along the little stretch of the river and then get onto the beach. And there too, my father would swim into the sea, which with these treacherous waves, he would disappear in the waves, and I would just wait for him to come back. And my memories, as a child, as a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old, was basically collecting cowrie shells on the beach, walking along the beach, looking at the vegetation on the beach, discovering these, rolling spiky balls, which was part of the beach vegetation, not knowing what it was, of course. My father was not, of course, rattling off the names of most of the species. But I think life as a child, learning is basically looking, is basically observing, and you just know. You know that there is this particular plant or this particular rock that, because it is close to the river, will have this calcareous formation from where you will get your kalwa. So these are images, of course, of more recent times when my children were small, and I would take my children, just like my father did, to different landscapes in Goa. This was another part of my childhood backyard, and where there would be a canoe, mangroves. Even today, when I pass by a mangrove and the smell of the water makes me feel at home. And I would often spend time alone under the mangrove canopy. I would be often caught sleeping or napping under a coconut tree. And I would get a real shouting from my family members. You know, I was caught one day sleeping under a tree, and there was a vine snake. And I got reprimanded because a lot of times then people believed that the vine snake would make a hole, in the head, because it would dangle on a tree and it would eat your brains or cause you some damage. It was only later that I learned from my friend who was an excellent birder, Harvey D'Souza, and he taught me more about snakes, and that vine snakes are completely harmless. And I even held one, and from that day, the fear of snakes has never resurfaced since then. On the right hand side top image, you see a snail and a crab. Okay, so these were a lot of the species and organisms that I would see. I didn't know their names. Only later I learned that it's called the telescopic snail, and there are fiddler crabs and mud crabs, and that they are unique to the mangrove areas. I just knew that they were there and they were part of the mangrove ecosystem, but I did not know their names. It was only later with friends and my mentors like Dr. Usha Desai, from whom I learned about many of these species. And of course, walking in the Chikol Mati was something that we did regularly, and learned to feel at home with that mud. Mud plastered on our hands, mud plastered on our feet. And again, all of this made me feel at home. Another beautiful setting was the canopy of the mangroves, wherever it was in Machin or whether it was in near to Veli, where my maternal grandparents lived, or it was the place where I was born and brought up, that is Panjim city. This is one part which was recurrent in all these three places, my favorite places of my childhood. And mangroves makes me feel at home. Another landscape that I would often visit as a child with my maternal grandmother were the salt pans in South Goa, Salset Taluka. This was close to Veli village. And this, of course, image is not of that particular salt pan. This is a more recent image. But I remember my grandmother carrying me or, lifting me when I was tired. That means I must have been really small. And the smell of salt and, a lot of people, with my grandmother collecting the salt in baskets. And I remember bringing that salt home. So these are memories again of my childhood, something that I felt very comfortable with. I did not realize the significance of all of this growing up, but only later I realized when I went back to these memories, doing the same thing with the children I work with. This was another memory of going to the fields in Panjim. I lived in a small ward called Batle, that is at the base of the Altino Hill. And going to the backyard, the fields and the wetlands between Santa Cruz and Taligaon was my play area. That was my outdoor class. And going at different times of the year, going at different times of the day was something I really enjoyed. And in the absence of cell phones, in the absence of screens and computers and laptops, this was how we spent our time, exploring, playing in the grass, walking in the Chikol Mati, looking at the different soil types, playing with the soil, making little bundles of hay, sitting, jumping on them. These were all our toys. Then, of course, as I grew up, the landscapes remained. I visited these landscapes, but right through college and once I graduated and I started my practice, these landscapes were there, but only, whenever I went for work, when I was designing a house, when I was building the house, and it was in certain locations like Kurtori, Makazana, Shandor. I was in a way reacquainting with these landscapes, freshwater lakes, the Kazans, the wetlands were the landscapes that remained all through my adult life. Then, of course, there came an opportunity to engage with children. I was going out with my children very often, taking them to different excursions. And I think I felt the need that I had to share it with others. And there was an opportunity because in my colony, this is in Santines, and this is an area called Tamdi Mati. And I just found that a lot of the children in the colony, they were friends of my older son. And they were basically, not having enough to do. And of course, in a gated community, often, sometimes children are not allowed to play certain boisterous games. They're not allowed to play cricket, football, basketball, or anything that, can cause damage to property, that can disrupt, the silence, especially when there are senior citizens in the colony. So there were restrictions like that. So many of the children were busy on their computers, playing computer games. And often, even on a Sunday, they would wake up very late. Then one day I just approached them and I said, I like to explore. And if you're interested, I can take you in the neighboring areas. And all of them said, yes, auntie, we would like to do that. And so one fine morning, I said, but you'll have to get up really early in the morning because it is interesting in the morning. There's less traffic. There are more things to see. And it's also safer. So our first excursion was in the wetlands and the fields of Taligaon. That was our backyard. That was our outdoor class. And you won't believe it, in such a short time, we spent about 1.5 hours, and we saw so many birds. We saw local species. We saw also forest species. At the end of the walk, we carried a couple of binoculars. We saw a pair of the Malabar grey hornbill. In Pitterbutt area, there are two huge trees close to Kamrabat area, which we can see from the colony. And we saw right on top two grey hornbills, and we were so thrilled. And of course, many of the children, were considered to be academically weak. So of course, they did not know names of birds or any other species. But I think that is, I also did not know them when I was a child, and I would often go with my father and I would just learn, and that memory would be imprinted in my mind just from observation. So we did just that. We walked along the fields. We saw the garden lizard. We saw different caterpillars. We saw different butterflies. We saw dragonflies, birds on the wires, birds in the water, birds on top of the trees. And, the children just started discovering this. And I think that is something we need to allow them. What happens in a closed classroom? There is a teacher, and the teacher is telling everything. There is no chance for a child to discover. There is no landscape. There is nothing for them to feel in a sensory manner. There's nothing to touch. There's nothing to smell. There's nothing to see other than a textbook and the pages in the textbook, and with knowledge that is limited. Somebody has done a sketch of a bird, and that is all that you see. But in nature, it is limitless. Everybody has a choice and a chance and an opportunity to see more. And I think that is important. So the children made all these observations. Of course, many of them could not recall. But after the exercise, we went back, to my place, and I asked them to draw what they saw. And one of the boys, who was really considered to be weak at studies in the school, had collected bird feathers. He had started, noting down the different bird feathers and started putting them in his book. Another child was very good at drawing, started making illustrations of the birds that he saw. They were not, of course, excellent illustrations, but that was a start. And of course, at the end of the walk, since I was keen about writing at that time, I asked the children to write about what they had seen. And they were all in broken sentences, but it was important to have a record of their experience and what they had seen. After this, of course, it started off a series of outings and explorations. So we went to the Nagali wetlands after this. Then we went to many other places, right from the Pato wetlands and mangroves to Neura wetlands. I took them wherever I had taken my children. I took them even to Pilen Plateau, where there were very unique birds to be seen. There were first sightings done by researchers. So I even took them to these locations so that they could have that experience. The interesting thing was at the end of about 6 months, when we had gone to many locations, one of my friends, he's a well-known birder. His name is Pankaj Lad. And he was doing a session at the archives, Goa State Archives. And it was on bird calls. He's excellent at making bird calls using his mouth, of course. And I said, I'm going to bring these children because they've seen so many birds that it would be really good for them to be a part of this presentation. And you won't believe it. I was surprised that when we went there and Pankaj began to show slides and played bird calls, many of these children who were then considered academically weak were able to rattle off the scientific bird names, the common bird names, and were able to identify, the birds that were shown in the presentation. What did this say? What did this prove? This proved that every child given the opportunity will learn. And if the learning is made limitless, and if the learning is made in an environment where there are no limitations, there are no restrictions, then they will learn far better. I worked with these children for a long time. Some of them even visit me today and send me messages because they are already out of college and even working now. But the memories remain with them of the excursions that they had. And some of them are even able to take it further as a personal challenge to speak about environmental issues. In this picture, this was during that same period, I think 2009, 2010, when the children took up, there is a picture at the lower corner, left-hand corner that you can see. The same children who were part of many of these excursions, they presented a play on garbage for their colony. And we also took the same play to the Panjim Garden in a public space for a public event where the children presented their same theme on, basically the play was on no dumping and no littering, and they shared their ideas using that forum. The same children also went to the forest, and although in my childhood, I don't remember going to the forest with my father. My father, of course, went to the forest very often because he had a very close friend at that time who was a hunter. And at that time, hunting was not banned. So we used to call his friend Monkey Uncle. And he was a neighbor in Marshe. And he would often go, with Monkey Uncle. And I had a lot of opportunities to interact with Monkey Uncle along with my father. But I didn't have the opportunity, maybe because I was very small, to go to the forest in Kotigaon. And much later, of course, it was because of my dear friend Aarti. She introduced me to an organization called Eco Treks, and where the organization was already taking a lot of youngsters and people to the nearby forests in Goa. And it was at that time that I got reintroduced to forest landscapes. And I, of course, then took the children along with me to forest. In this case, it was to Bondla. And what we did was we organized an overnight stay at the dormitory there. And we thought of, we of course explored many of the trails. Everybody knows about Bondla being a zoo, but it is also a wildlife sanctuary. It's the smallest wildlife sanctuary, similar to the bird sanctuary at Shorao. And besides visiting the forest, we also visited the zoo to understand the issues of the animals and the people working with the forest department to manage the zoo. And we found that there were issues like people were teasing the animals when they were visiting. There was, of course, a lot of littering, garbage being strewed. So we decided to do a poster play. We sat in the garden next to the zoo, and we prepared posters. At this time, there was a national initiative for tigers as part of the Kids for Tiger campaign, which I also got, roped in to help with leading in schools. And the title of the theme, the initiative was called Leave Me Alone. So we used the same tagline. We presented posters as if the zoo animals were saying, leave me alone. And we interacted with the people coming to the zoo, talking to them about why teasing animals is wrong, why littering is wrong. And we got their feedback, and it was really useful because besides the group of colony children, there were also college students. There were also architectural interns that I had in the group. It was a very, very useful program. And of course, as usual, after this, I got some of the children to write about it, and it was published in the newspapers. Now, why is this important? Because somehow we feel that in school, education is limited to learning, and then you just answer your exam and you're evaluated on your knowledge based on that. But I think learning is much more. Learning is participatory, learning is observation, learning is interactive, and learning is taking action. So when you share your experiences and you see an issue that is troubling you, and you write about it or you talk about it, is also giving you, it is making you empowered to do something about a problem that we are also a part of. So I think at that point, it was very important for me. I felt that everything that I was participating in, whether it was education, whether it was taking action, was also part of learning, and I needed to disseminate that knowledge with the students. And we have had a numerous experiences and opportunities where, besides a day visit to the forest, we have also done camping experiences to the forest where we've gone and stayed a couple of nights in the forest. We have done night trails, and I must say that all the RFOs, all the forest staff has been so cooperative and helpful when it came to taking children. One of the problems that I would often face as a professional, as an educator, as somebody who wanted to take children outdoors was, who do you think you are? What if something happens to the children? Are you willing to take that responsibility? And I would say yes, because at this time I realized that 10 years ago, schools had stopped taking children for camps because parents were not giving permission. If anything happened to the child, even if it was an accident, there was a lot of problems that managements had to face. And therefore, in the absence of taking children for night camps and exploring the forest, there was a large part of learning that was stopped. And I felt that it was critical, something needed to be done. And I had a lot of help during this time in my colony. There were few concerned parents who also came with me and the children to be able to support and provide that little, moral support and physical support at a time when there were all these questions being thrown at me that, don't you think it is a big responsibility? Don't you think it is a big risk? So I think in life, there is always a risk, but you have to weigh the pros and cons. And it is very important when we look at the future of children and the kind of environment and nature they're going to inherit. And if we want them to be engaged, we want them to be concerned, then we have to take that risk of teaching children by taking them outdoors. Then, of course, in about 2009, 2010, 2011, those years were very, very special because I got an opportunity to engage with the Kids for Tiger enterprise. It was a national level enterprise, and my good friend Bittu Sehgal, who is the editor of a well-known magazine called Sanctuary Asia, and they were working with children all across the country under the program called Kids for Tigers. He approached me and he asked me whether I would conduct the program in schools in Goa. I wholeheartedly agreed, but of course, not knowing how I would go to schools and teach children because I'm not a teacher. I don't have the qualifications. I don't know how to teach, basically. So that was a dilemma. However, I said I will do this because it is important to do it. And one of the first schools I remember going to was the Little Penguin School, with whom I've had a long association. There's also Auxilium School, which has been excellent with their support all through. There was Our Lady of the Rosary at Donapaula and many other schools. Progress High School in Panjim. We had about 12 or 15 schools that enrolled in the first year. And when I took the children, I realized that many of the children had lots of knowledge from books. And the knowledge was knowledge that was not limited to India, but knowledge of the kind of species that were there in South America, in America, and the rest of the world. But what was shocking or concerning was that they didn't know about the local biodiversity. They didn't know about the local forests. They didn't know about the local species and the local landscapes and the local ecosystems. They knew about, they knew how to explain about a simple thing like germination, of how a seed will, if you give it enough water and it is put in soil, it will germinate and a sapling will be born, but they didn't know how it looks in real life. So there was this lacunae I found with book knowledge and practical knowledge. And so I took it onto myself and I thought that why not do every session that I have to do outdoors? It also solves the problem that I don't know how to teach in an indoor environment. And taking the children outdoors simply solved my dilemma. So I began to take every school that I had this program running to their background. So it was, if it was a school in Panjim, it was the Pato wetlands, it was the salt pans, it was the mangroves, it was the wetlands around the city. If it was a school in Kankon like Dinakar, which is in Lolien, or the others that we have worked with, it would basically be taking them to their nearby backyards, to their immediate backyards in that location. And it was fantastic because the program grew. We got children from different parts of Goa with other coordinators, with other environmentalists engaged not only with their backyards and their locations, but also to start a dialogue with their representatives. So in this case, you can see children when the program was launched engaging with late Mr. Manohar Parrikar, who was the then Chief Minister, appealing to him to consider notifying Madhe as a tiger reserve, to appeal to him for a tiger reserve in Goa. We also had the Environment Minister, Alina, coming and meeting the children in the wetlands of Panjim, where there were different groups of children from different schools talking to, engaging the Environment Minister of what they had seen and the need to protect it. And of course, the final image over the last few years, just before the pandemic, was again meeting our representative of Panjim, was Siddharth Kunkolekar. And it was very insightful for the students because, Siddharth at that time told the students that, I did not know that salt is formed like this. I did not know that salt is prepared or harvested like this. And we presented to him a bag of salt. And I think it is important to engage our representatives with our ecosystems that are our thriving ecosystems in our cities, which are important for the welfare and health of the city and its inhabitants. After this, of course, there were numerous, after I think the first couple of years, after going to schools and appealing to them, to have this program of outdoor learning, of taking the children outdoors, I was getting flooded with appeals, with requests from schools, from the teachers I knew in the schools, to come and do a session for their classes. And this was one of the schools. This is the Our Lady of the Rosary at now Kujira. It was also called the Red Rosary. So this is the school that I've done a lot of engagements with, showing them ecosystems like the mangrove ecosystems. We've done salt pan walks, we've done spring walks, freshwater springs, and also showing them beach ecosystems. And this is important. Sometimes you think that children will not be disciplined, they will be shouting, jumping. It is okay. It is okay for children to scream and shout when we are taking them outdoors for the first time, because it also means that they've not got an opportunity to be outdoors. And once they engage, then the task is easy, Then you give them tasks like using your phone or some camera by which they can start taking images. We've engaged students to take pictures of the things that they see, plants, butterflies, different flowers, and then using online platforms like the India Biodiversity Portal, iNaturalist, to be able to upload this as citizen science projects. What are citizen science projects? These are projects where ordinary citizens, students can be engaged to document the kind of flora and fauna that is there in our backyard, where scientists then can have a look at it, identify it. Even lost species have been rediscovered, new species have been discovered. So that it's a very important module to engage with, because ordinary citizens, students can participate in an exercise like this. After a few years, I think in 2013, my first teaching assignment came from the Dempo College. And Dempo College based in Panjim earlier, now it is in Kujira. So basically there is business administration, which is a course that is conducted in many of the BBA colleges in Goa. And environment studies was introduced in 2013, or I think a little earlier. And because of my environmental work, again, I'm not a qualified teacher, but because of my environmental work, I was invited by the management to take up this course and the program to teach the students environment studies. So I took it up, but I requested the management to use my own methods of outdoor learning to teach the students. And it was fantastic because the management gave me full support and I could take the students out for every class. So based on the syllabus that they had, the topics that they had to study, I simply tailored it to an outdoor class. So if they had to learn about ecosystems, about resources, I took them to various locations nearby so that they could understand resources that are available in a particular area, why environment is important, how business is connected to environment, how the two are very, very connected. And if environment goes, then what is business left, right? So this was a particular exercise I did on the beach to understand beach ecosystems and also issues that are connected to beach ecosystems. And this was my first engagement or job where I had to teach, a teaching job with the colleges. And subsequently, of course, I was appointed as adjunct professor at the Goa College of Architecture. And here too, I tried to bring outdoor learning to the campus. With permission, of course, from the management, I again took architecture students as part of their orientation, as part of their design program, to various locations outdoors, to various villages, to various tribal villages in Goa, where they could understand design, design for disaster, design for settlement, and many other aspects that are connected to these subjects. Parallelly, as I was teaching, there were opportunities to try new ideas. And there was this particular exercise. I had to teach something called emergency and disaster management, both for the business students and for architecture students. How to build a disaster in disaster. And it was again connected to climate change, climate resilience, and how our cities can adopt certain measures. How can students and young entrepreneurs adopt certain businesses that are connected to environment, that are connected to climate change. So these are different programs that we did, and different experts engaged in conducting these programs. This was one that was called making emergency floating boats. And this was for both the DEMPO BBA students and also for the architecture students. So we simply went, asked the students to make an itinerary, asked to design structures, go to scrap yards and find out what materials were available. And instead of just doing book study, you know that, okay, disaster means this. It has so many aspects, and therefore, you know, you need to take certain measures to counter or take care of, let's say, a community affected by disaster. It was important for them to get this experiential opportunity to understand what disaster really means and what happens to people who are in calamities, different calamities across the world. So this was an emergency boat that they had to design, and it's you can see the person is literally with his bum in the water and getting wet. When we started the program, many of the students didn't know swimming, and it is ironic that in a coastal city like Panjim, you know, where we are surrounded by water, and as kids, I know that my father and his friends would often go to the water and swim. And a lot of my friends did the same, but it was ironic that many of the students didn't know. And however, of course, we had to take permission from the management. And these are areas where the waters are shallow in the khazans. Basically, the water is just about 1.5 meter, 4 feet deep. And you can just wade across this water, so it's perfectly safe. We, of course, used life jackets. We used floating inflatable tires, which were devices for safety. And many of the children used fantastic ideas to make their emergency boats. There was also an exercise that I did subsequently under an initiative called the Traveling Dome, which basically means like an outdoor classroom. And we did conducted an exercise to make a floating garden. And this was to address the issue of water pollution in the famous Santines Creek and how living plants can be used to filter water. You know, today our city administration and various consultants and city politicians and representatives are working on extensive plans to do bioremediation of the Santines Creek, to clean the Santines Creek. But one of the most simple solutions is bioremediation using plants. And so we implemented some of the ideas, but we also did it as part of the workshop to disseminate the knowledge among citizens, among children. And here you see little kids involved in the program making little floating gardens. And this is the one that still exists today in the Santines Creek. There's also an exercise we did with the DEMPO BBA students, where as part of understanding issues of water pollution and then providing solutions for bioremediation using plants, they also did about more than 100 students were involved in this exercise, where they made floating gardens in the Santines Creek, which were left there for bioremediation. Sorry. I also did spring walks with my students and other ordinary participants. Panjim has 3 springs. In the surrounding villages, we have springs, but they are in very bad condition today. Now, why is the case? Because today our connection to water is a tap. At our home, we have a tap and we use the tap, and that is all that is there as an easy connection to water at the press of a button. And that is why you see that our public baths, the public water that is there, is in a condition of abject pollution, degradation because of our apathy, right? So if you look at the different springs, did you know that we have Font Phoenix in Panjim, which is like a public bath? There is a tunnel inside where you can go to the source of water. Do you know that there is also Boktawaka spring? And these two, Font Phoenix and Boktawaka, on opposite sides of the Altino Hill. And did you know that it is also accessible? Boktawaka has 2 tunnels where you can go to the source of water. Do you know that there is a Tiguranchi Bain, which is another spring in Santines? It's a natural spring and a source of water all through the year. All these are perennial springs. That means there is water all through the year. And during the rains, when the pollution is less, children and residents from the area and even people from far away come to dive, jump into this pristine water. It's blue. And it is called Tiguranchi Bain because traditionally there would be a lot of the catfish found in these waters. And today it is used by dhobis. And till date, of course, right now it is under threat of construction because adjacent to the spring, there is a huge construction coming up, but the access is still public. You can still go and visit it. And every student that I took to the spring, every person from the city, every friend and every participant that went to the spring was absolutely awed because either they had not heard about it or it was a first experience and it was a memorable experience. It was something that was valuable. These are the different images below of different groups that have been taken to these springs, and there are more than 1,000 trips done to these springs. So I've lost the count, I've lost the numbers, but they're all documented. I have this habit of writing about it, and every session is documented. I have a number of blogs that I run. So if you need to try this, if you need to experiment with an outdoor session, if you want to visit any of these places with your friends or students, this is the reference. It's called Mission Green Goa, and you can check. You can just type in the search window or the tab for the location or any of the initiatives. You can just type the name of the initiative, whether it's the backyard class or the outdoor learning class, the traveling dome or the camping exercise, and the posts which are specific to these will come up and you can access them. I've also done a number of sessions with teachers. Some of my friends who are principals, deans, or part of the management of different schools and colleges have invited me to conduct sessions in their institutions. So this was one that I did in Mandre for the teachers of the higher secondary of the college there. And this was again focusing on outdoor learning and why it is important to take the children and engage them outdoors, and whether it is maths or history or geography or science. Every subject is very, very easy to connect to every aspect that is there in nature. This is a very special exercise that we did, where we funded a few students. There were 4 students that needed support because of their passion for environment, because of their passion for wildlife, because of their passion for nature and photography. So there was one student, Sachin, from the Kamrabat area. We've been working with a lot of children as part of our community building exercise, as part of our social work. So there was one student who showed inclination towards nature. He has a lot of empathy and curiosity. So he was one of the selected students. There were 2 children from Kankorn, Gaurav and Diksha. They were 12th standard students. They were in their higher secondary, and one of them was a commerce student. One of them, of course, wanted to pursue sciences. And this was a workshop that was conducted by a well-known herpetologist, an expert in reptiles and amphibians called Dr. Varad Giri. And he was conducting a special session on the endemic species of the Western Ghats. This was in Wayanad. So we selected the students, they were funded, and this is part of the exercise that we do all through the year, all over these years, where we support students who have a passion for a particular aspect of environment or part of their studies, and they find no support from either their institution or their families. And then we engage the family, we engage the institution, and we support them. So this was a fantastic engagement that and the experience that these students had, and they're doing very well today. And I think this is important. This is very, very important, where at some point, as part of their learning exercise, they also do something practical. The next initiative, like I said, was a traveling dome. For a number of years, we set up the Traveling Dome Enterprise as an enterprise or an initiative to teach children outdoors. So Traveling Dome is nothing. It's a tent-like structure. It's a geodesic dome that has been made by students. It is made out of pipes like a Lego set, and that becomes like a marker for an outdoor class. So wherever we go, we set up the tent. It is a nice activity that the children do, and it is a part of an important aspect of engaging the children, of feeling that sense of ownership, responsibility, connectivity to the place, to the exercise. So everywhere we go, this is a camping exercise done in Kurdi. And how this is conducted is every year, twice a year, we do a camping exercise for anybody who's interested, whether it is students, whether it is people who live, local people, or people from the city, and even adults. And what we do is we do this whole trip where you look at historic sites in the area, like Pansaimal, which is the oldest rock art site in Goa. And we connect then that to this submerged village, Kurdi. If some of you don't know, Kurdi is very famous. It's a village that got submerged when the Selauli Dam was built. And today it is very popular because people have written about it. And a lot of people, the villagers who are displaced and live nearby, often go when the water subsides in the summer. And they go to the temple, they venerate the deity there. The Christians also go. And we also tie in this with an exercise of watching a film. There's a fantastic film on Kurdi done that was, facilitated by the late Professor Alito Siqueira, who also features in the film. There are also the students of sociology who are part of it, and it's a lovely narrative. So it's lovely to connect the location, the history, the ecology of the place, and to something in the media which makes learning complete. So this is an exercise that we do often. There are some students here from St. Xavier's, MAPSA, from Father Agnel, Verna, who had for the first time gone to the forest or done a camping exercise like this. So the learning was amazing. And for us also, every time I engage with the students, there is always something more that I learn. And I think that is the journey of a teacher or an educator, that you have to have the thirst for knowledge, you have to be curious. And every time you are trying to share your knowledge, in return, you also learn from either the local students or the students that are participating. Then, of course, pandemic struck. And when the pandemic struck, I did not know what to do. And it came all of a sudden. Many of the things that I was often engaging with, I was wondering what to do now. How do I teach? Colleges and schools are still calling me, but I don't want to do this online. I want to do it physically. And how do I do this? So during the pandemic, I also had an opportunity to take up temporary residence in Nagali. So from Santinesh, from a completely urban area, I had the opportunity to stay on rent in Donapal area. And it was fantastic because the university plateau is a landscape which I think everybody should visit and experience. And I was not a stranger to this particular landscape because in the past, because of my interest in birding, I had gone to certain locations. There is the IT park, which a lot of citizens were fighting for, and there were birding lists prepared. There was this desert whittier, which was spotted there, the Jacobin cuckoo, or the pied cuckoo. There were yellow water lapwings, which were sighted there. So this, landscape was something that I was familiar with. But during the pandemic, what happened was my older son, who was interested in snakes, began to explore and document this entire area of the university plateau. And I, of course, also like snakes, and we discovered something called a saw-scaled viper. And we've been documenting this across the years now, but it was a find, and it was a very special find. And of course, that led us on to discover many other things. As we were discovering, friends were coming over, and I have a friend, Viola. She's a scientist. She identified many of the wildflowers. In the past, we have done excursions and walks with Professor Janardhanam, well-known botanist from the Goa University. And many of the wildflowers, of course, I was familiar with. But I found many others that connected to bird migration to the area, and why a particular bird called the pied cuckoo was coming all the way from Africa. There were some wildflowers that were connected to the cuckoo, which was also originally connected to Africa. So a lot of these discoveries, and then because there were a lot of children who were often meeting us, we decided to start something called the backyard class. And it was a module that anybody could do remotely wherever you were. And what was the basic module about? It was to identify a location. It could be outside your window. It could be outside your garden. It could be outside, any area which was nearby, which you could access. And the pandemic allowed us to do that, right? In spite of the lockdown, you were free to go into your backyard. You were free to go into your garden. And I think that was a saving grace for all of us across the world who discovered the biodiversity and the wealth that nature had to offer. So it began with different parts of the plateau and various children that we were already engaged with. Some of the children from my colony began to come to the university plateau because there were so many things that they had not seen. There were some children from here who wanted to see landscapes in Taligaon, landscapes in Santa Cruz, landscapes in nearby areas. And we had friends. We had friends like Mario Braganza from Santa Cruz, Arturo from Santa Cruz. We had other friends from the Kadamba Plateau where we could go to another location called the Toyar Lake, which is again a notified wetland, and so on and so forth. So this is a session that we are doing with some of the children. Where we are explaining different kinds of vegetation, which we have learned during the past about grasses, sedges, wildflowers, and many other things. There are also night trails which we have done and discovered a whole lot of different species, frog species, snake species, skink species across the lateritic plateau, which are again common to all the lateritic plateaus of Goa. Then of course, 1 minute, I think it's, so as part of the backyard class was launched soon after the lockdown and the pandemic, sometime in May or June. And we had different kinds of children. We were working with some of the children that we had always been working with from underprivileged areas. We were working with children going to formal schools and private schools. So the mix was very good. And I want to bring up, mention this also. One of the important aspects about learning is also to work with mixed groups. If you work with children who have all the privileges in the world, they will not understand the value of the impact of using these privileges where we are negatively impacting the environment. If you work with, again, only a group of children who have never seen the other side, then that is also not right. And I think this has been one of the very important aspects of the outdoor learning modules right across the more than a decade of engagements that I have done and all my friends who have engaged with me have done. So even here in the backyard class, we made sure that we often work with children from mixed groups. So here you see we have Dr. Nandini Velio, who is giving insights about wildflowers. And in this particular instance, this was sometime in June or July, where Nandini actually talked to the children about the Save Moleng campaign. And I think that was very important because it started our whole journey with the students being involved in the Save Moleng campaign. What happened was in different, so we used to do the backyard class almost every day at certain times. Generally it would be in the evening. We had neighbors like Mrs. Sebastian who would often come and join us. And then one day he said, why don't you come to my garden and I'll show you my the biodiversity of my garden, and he had mixed plants, both wild plants as well as, plants and certain vegetables and fruits that he was growing. And it was really a fantastic exercise. Again, this is important, the engagement of the neighborhood with the children, with the elders, because it brings about a sense of ownership. It brings about a sense of community. And I think that was a lesson that we learned all through when they knew about, my son Vikram doing snake rescues. There were calls often all across the neighborhood and even beyond, where, people would call us and we would rush and help them. And then Vikram would become a resource person along with our friends, who would again create awareness about the importance of snakes, about the importance of certain habitats. And the children also learned this knowledge. It is important. I don't think, knowledge should be limited or exclusive. If I know something and it is, something really unique, I should be able to share it and share that knowledge, by which the other students also feel empowered with that knowledge. So here there were students who were learning about snakes. Because of snakes, they were also learning about photography. And it was encouraging them into hobbies, which would again take them away from certain bad habits back home, of being stuck to the screen, being stuck to their gadgets, which was, causing a lot of problems with their learning, with their performance at schools. Then, of course, one fine day during the course of the backyard class, I met some kids from the neighborhood. Okay. They were very street smart. They were very thrilled to know what we were doing. And they wanted to share what they were doing. So there were these 3 or 4 kids who had built a little tree house on one of the trees on the university plateau, and they wanted to share that with us. And at the same time, we were also looking at one of the trees where we could build a tree house for our students. And the students were busy planning, what kind of planks, what kind of props they would need to make that tree house. And here we had another set of children who had already done that, and they wanted to share that with us. So that began our engagement with some more children who, of course, wanted to join us to learn more. And of course, after this engagement, it led us to identifying many children whose parents were working, who reached out to us and said that, can we help them in their regular classes at school. And I think this was at a point where children were asked to attend their online classes. They were expected to have gadgets, and many of these children didn't have that. And it was devastating to see also online classes going all awry and haywire, because that was not the best, platform for students to learn. We all know from statistics what online education has done. It has veered children from outdoors to screens. Today, we are grappling with children addicted to their phones, addicted to their screens, addicted to their computers. And why this is happening? This is happening because engagement with the outdoors, learning with the outdoors has become limited. So as part of this whole problem, there was an opportunity to use a shared space as a community classroom where children could come and utilize the resources, whether it was using a phone, whether it was using my phone, whether it was using a device that I had to attend the online classes, to learn about computers, to learn about something under our guidance. This was an opportunity that we wholeheartedly embraced. And I must say at this point that, I'm really grateful to 2 people. That is Arnold Lobo, who is the founder of an initiative called Talent in You that we have been working with for the longest time, where we are identifying students who are dropouts, who have not able to cope up with school, and funding them, supporting them with different courses. They could be practical courses that are an outcome of the engagement that we do outdoors, and supporting them to find their career choice, to be able to be employed and earn for themselves. And the other person, of course, is Vishal Role, who has been often my colleague in teaching the students. A large part of the indoor teaching is handled by him. A large part of finding the talent is handled by Arnold Lobo. And I, of course, am doing the easy bit, which is teaching the children outdoors. And that is something that I really enjoy. It is something that comes naturally to me. So as an outcome of the backyard class, it started the community classroom engagement. And the community classroom engagement began with children coming to our shared space where they would spend the whole day. Parents would come by evening, share with us their anxieties. They were all working parents. They were all, parents who could not leave their jobs to be able to support their children where studies or learning was concerned. At this time also, just before the computer classroom, setting up of the computer classroom, a lot of my friends also approached me to take care of them during the pandemic, take care of their children. So because of various reasons, because of COVID, the virus itself, and the positivity rate. So I had some of the children who were staying with me under my care for a prolonged period of time because either their family was in a hospital or they were unable to, keep the child engaged. And there were also older children, nearly 18 years old, who had to be quarantined, not from the COVID virus, but from their phones. So there were some children like that. And I think that was a very good opportunity for us to be able to look at how to mentor a child, to look at what are the benefits of doing certain things to be able to mentor a child, to teach them discipline, to teach them about the value of hard work and engagement outdoors. So because of these opportunities, we started setting up certain schedules that engaged us into farming. We had to get up early morning by 6 or 7 and go to our field. By then we had started a community farming exercise. So we had to be out in the field. Children were grumpy. They would throw tantrums. We had to lift them and, like military commanders, take them out, put them in our vehicles and take them down to the ground. Again, at the field, there would be reluctance, but it became a long way of teaching children values of hard work. And slowly you could see the effect on them, because there was a point we were engaged in a community farming exercise in the Talegaon fields, and it was only successful because of the leadership of the children. All the children at different times, the way they were engaged in different groups, they would do the de-weeding, they would do the planting, they would do the nurturing of the vegetables, they would do the digging for water, and it was very, very hard work. They would also finally do the harvesting. We also did a lot of volunteering activities, volunteering to transplant rice. And some of the children had already, were accustomed to it back in their villages. So it was a great platform where they shared, what they knew, and they taught us in return. Some of the children who had skills they had life skills, they knew so many things. Some of them are such expert swimmers and divers. They in turn taught, the other children these life skills. And again, it was important. We would cook together. The children would, manage their meals. They would plan what was needed to be brought for a meal, what was needed to be cooked that day. So there were different things as part of practical learning, as part of using the shared space, as part of having a community classroom that taught us values. And I'm not talking about just the children. It taught us as educators, it taught us as mentors so many values, values of commitment, values of discipline, values of being together, values of family, values of helping each other. And this continues to do till date. We have new children coming in. Our youngest child is about 7 or 8 years old. She's really small, named Gauri. And every day is a challenge, but every day is also an opportunity to do something really fantastic when it comes to learning. Then, of course, I would like to, I think this is the last slide. And I would like to end with this slide because it is very, very important to me. And it is very important to the children that we work with. It is very important to our initiative because a large part, what do we learn, and what is the outcome of that learning that we do? Basically, the learning as a community and the learning outdoors is most important to build values. It is not to get more marks. It is not for a performance in the school, right? It is more important to build values. It is more important to have ownership of my land. It is more important to be committed for something, right? So this is, I think, has become the large part of the teaching that I do and my friends do as part of the traveling dome, as part of the talent in you, the backyard class and the community classroom. And the value is when it is required to raise your voice to protect my land. So all the children of the community classroom at different times have been part of different campaigns, whether it is the Korsonaka No Coal campaign, whether it is the Save Molang campaign, where they talked about saving trees, whether it is saving the fields in Taligaon, whether it is saving the fishing village in Naushi, and many others. All the children at different times have been involved in these campaigns as a part of a learning exercise for posterity. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tarula, for this interesting and very, very enlightening session on outdoor learning. We are really grateful for doing this session for us. Thanks once again.